This time I'm in Colorado, doing something I've wanted to do for a long time. Take the all-day adventure through the mountains on the famous Durango to Silverton steam train. The line was completed in 1882 to bring gold, silver, and other valuable ores from the mines around Silverton to the smelter in Durango. The line has several engines, all built between 1902 and 1925, and they're still remarkably reliable. And of course, they have that cool whistle. And it turns out that the most economical route through the mountains was along the Animas River. And it's quite pretty. And the train knows how to show it off. After World War II, when the mines began to run out, the train became a tourist attraction. Today, the 45-mile ride is a bucket list item for those of us who love to explore the Mountain West. I'm going to take you along for the ride and tell you what you need to know so that one day you can do it yourself. And yes, it is a full day. It's 3.5 hours each way, with a 2-hour stop in historic and food-filled Silverton. You can save about an hour and a half by taking a bus back. 3.5 hours sounds like a long time, but I was never bored. There's always something interesting to see. And I had a great time chatting with my seatmates, who were really good sports when it came to the camera. Sorry I had to break up the show, but these videos don't make themselves, so this is the begging segment. This video is sponsored by my retirement account. And one thing you can do to help me out is click that like and subscribe button, or contribute via PayPal. With all those pretty pictures, I know that many of you now want to come here. But where is Durango, Colorado? Well, it's in the southwest corner of the state. It has only 20,000 people, but it feels much bigger. It has more restaurants per capita than San Francisco. And major carriers fly into its airport. And if you enjoy road trips, it's a 4-hour drive from Albuquerque. I rode the train in late September, and the fall color didn't disappoint. Several trains leave each morning. All but one is a 100-year-old steam train, but the last train to leave is pulled by a diesel. You can get your tickets online or in the historic depot, like I did. The cheapest round-trip fare is about $120. The first class and presidential cars are about twice as much, but they have a much different layout and more food and beverage options. The coach cars have windows that slide up and traditional seating. I chose an open-air gondola car. These were originally used to carry ore from the mines, but they've been repurposed and retrofitted with padded seats that face the scenery. The train yard behind the depot is a busy place in the morning. The first train leaves about 8:15. Soon the boilers are lit on the next one, and the train cars are assembled. Parking is across the tracks, behind the McDonald's. There is a concession car on the train, but I grabbed a breakfast sandwich and some bottles of water before my 9:15 on-time departure. It was a brisk 40 degrees when we left the station. I hadn't got to know my seatmates yet, so I tried not to stick the camera in their face. But it turns out I needn't have worried. They were great folks, and we had nice conversation the whole way. We emerged from the shadows of beautiful downtown Durango a few minutes later, facing the sun, which was quite warm, and I never needed my hat and gloves. All the seats are assigned, so when you buy your ticket, you actually have to decide what side you want to be on. Going up, the right side faces more scenery, and therefore it's called the preferred side. And on a cold morning, it's also the side that faces the sun. For me, this was a last-minute trip, and I didn't do much planning. And I wish I would have at least bought this map before I got on the train, instead of after. I got it in the gift shop. I'm going to use it to mark our progress. There are mile markers on the map that correspond to mile markers on the route. These tracks used to be part of the Denver-Santa Fe line. So we started at mile marker 451, because it's 451 miles from Denver. Back in the day, this is roughly where the smelter was, pretty close to the depot. This might be the rockiest train, motion-wise, that I've ever been on. Possibly because everything is so old, or maybe because it's a narrow gauge track. Standard train tracks are 56.5 inches wide. This one is only 36 inches wide, to make it easier to get around the sharp bends in the mountains. That's why they call it a narrow gauge train. Walking from car to car was a bit tricky. But luckily, I didn't see anybody who got motion sickness. Of course, the conductor didn't have any trouble at all. And according to the info on the map, the conductor is in charge of the train. I always thought it was the engineer. And yes, just about everybody waves at the train as it goes by. The first several miles out of town are flat, but the train still goes quite slow. The good thing about that is it was never too windy in the car. The Animas River is just beyond the golf course, and that's the river that we follow all the way up to Silverton. At this point, Highway 550 is just on the other side of the track. There's no shortage of resorts here. They've got you covered if you're into golf, hot springs, and Purgatory Ski Resort is just on the other side of the tracks. There isn't any onboard entertainment, but there are knowledgeable folk who volunteer to provide information and to answer questions.
Service. We're called rail rangers. We volunteer to ride on the train to ask their questions about what you see outside the train cars. Tree identification, wildflower weed identification, possibilities of wildlife. Any questions?
Turns out both me and my seatmates were interested in what is powering the train.
Burning coal or not?
Oh yeah, no, it's oil.
When they switch over,
They switched some last year.
Oh, that recent.
Yeah, some last
Last
year,
year?
and completely this year. And you don't have the clinkers and the cinders that we had with the coal, which is really nice for the passengers.
When I got back home, a friend told me that he did the train a few years ago and that the coal dust was quite a problem, especially in these open-air cars. And now how's this for a segue? Now I'm going to tell you about the steam engine. The engine that's pulling us is a Baldwin K36 with a number 482. They made 10 of this class back in 1925 in Philadelphia, and 9 of them are still working today. Yep, it's 100 years old, and it still works great. It weighs 143 tons when it's fully loaded with fuel and water. This railroad has 2 more just like it. They each pull with 36,000 pounds of tractive effort. I don't really know what that means, but it's the equivalent of about 1,200 horsepower. The line uses it to pull its biggest trains of 10 to 12 cars. The train line also has 3 1923 Alco K28 class engines, which are made in Schenectady. These are a little bit smaller with only 900 horsepower. This one was built in 1902, just 20 years after the line opened, and it's much more powerful than those early engines. It seems that the pace of technology improvement back then was pretty quick, too. These little engines could only pull a couple of cars, and 2 engines were required to pull the ore. I don't know much about steam engines, but I was surprised to learn that the piston that drives this heavyweight is located here. It has a stroke of just 2.5 feet. This huge engine that generates all this power, well, it just comes from this one little area and that one piston. And I think there's one on the other side, too. We start the slightly more than 3,000-foot climb about 11 miles from the depot. You can actually hear the engine chuffing sound. It sounds like it's struggling a bit. The slope is only 2.5%, which means that for every 10 feet of horizontal travel, we're going up just 3 inches. It's imperceptible to us, except for the changing sound of the engine. We're approaching Rockwood. And back in 1882, townspeople could pay $2 apiece, which is almost a day's pay at the time, to ride up here and have a picnic in a nearby clearing. The engine's about to work a little harder. We're approaching the High Line. The grade gets a bit steeper here as we're about to enter the most spectacular part of the trip, Cascade Canyon. This was the most difficult part of the line to build and blast out. In 1882, it cost approximately $100,000 per mile to build, which would be several $1 million today. I think I'll stop talking for a while. This view doesn't need any words. Want to be in the video? Look in amazement.
You ever do any rafting videos or anything like that?
And outside of Portland, I did.
Okay.
And I suppose you're wondering how far down it is to the river. Well, it's 400 feet.
Folks, what do y'all say? Pretty impressive views out there,
For some reason, the brakeman chose this moment to take us away from the view.
The railroad it's riding on was built way back in 1881. It was part of a larger system for the Denver and Rio Grande. Once this rail line here connected all the way as right down to Denver, you could actually buy a train ticket from Silverton to Denver, and that journey would take about 3 days to complete. And you change trains from our narrow gauge line to a standard gauge train in Alamosa, Colorado. Now, folks, way back in the day, like I said, the railroad was built in 1881. Our Silverton branch between Durango and Silverton is about 45 miles and about 3,000 feet of elevation difference between the two towns. Do any of you guys have a guess on how long it took to build this train track back in the day? How long did it take to build this railroad? Shout some guesses out loud if you're ready.
20 years.
20 years. Good guess. Anybody else?
3 years.
3 years?
6.
5 years? Back in the day, folks, it took them 9 months. 9 months to build this entire railroad. This railroad actually predates dynamite. Dynamite the railroad was just too cheap to buy it. So everything you see here was actually carved out with hand tools, pickaxes, and black powder. Explosive powder that you run onto a rock face, put a match up to, and then run away from. A very impressive feat, and then the women who built this railroad, and we're really proud to keep it open. So thank you guys for coming out and seeing the show that we put on. I do also like to mention the railroad that you're riding on is traveling through the San Juan National Forest. It will be bordering the Webbinage Wilderness area, some of the fine public lands available to all of us people of this great world. So please treat the land out there with respect as you enjoy the beautiful sights of the road.
Well, that was interesting, but I wish you would have chosen a better moment. As we head deeper up the canyon, we're approaching some sharp turns. Standard gauge trains have a lot of trouble going around turns this tight. It would have been much more expensive to make them less tight. That's why way back in 1880, they decided to make this a narrow gauge track. As I said earlier, these rails are just 36 inches apart. And remember, standard gauge is 56.5 inches, so these rails are much closer together, which allows them to go around tighter turns. The track is about to get to its steepest point, but the grade is still just 4%, which means we're going up not even 5 inches every 10 feet. Again, you can't really tell when you're sitting in the car, but you can tell that the engine is working a little harder. On this day, this was one of the prettiest places on the trip, but that wasn't the case back in 1921, when a mixture of snow and mud slid into the two engines that were pulling the train. Both ended up in the river 100 feet below. One of the engineers was killed. Luckily, the car, with 20 passengers, stayed on the track. The engineer was the only casualty. I now think I know why they call this the preferred side. The view on the other side isn't that good at the moment. We've climbed about 1,500 feet so far. At about 8,000 feet, we started to see fall color. We're approaching High Bridge, and I wish I would have known what a good photo op it is. They're about to clean out the lower part of the boilers. And this is one time when the other side actually is the preferred side. But I didn't know it at the time, but they blew steam out the other side too, and at this time of day, it made a nice rainbow. But I missed it. Once we crossed the bridge, I was no longer on what I would say is the preferred side. The Animas River was now on the other side of the train, and it was quite photogenic. By the way, all those whistles, they mean something. They're coded messages to the crew and to anybody else who can hear them. That was a long burst, followed by 2 short ones. It means the train is going to proceed to the next stop. A few minutes later, there was a clearing on our side and some old buildings. I'm not sure if these are the remnants of an old dude ranch that was here, or if these are old buildings from railroad workers. But I do know what this is-ish. Part of it's a siding, which is a sidetrack that can be used to park cars or to let another train pass. The other part of it is a Y. That's W-Y-E. This one can accommodate up to 16 cars. They go straight on one leg of the Y, and then way past where they join up. And then they back up on the other leg of the Y to the main track, and now can go in the opposite direction. Another siding had these old, dilapidated cars on it. I love stuff like this. Old 482 has to refill its water tanks twice on its way up to Silverton. And at mile marker 474, there's Tank Creek, which has been used to water the engines since the 1880s. If you look carefully, you can see a water tank. And we have to stop there. The water is collected from Needleton Creek. And back in the day, it was stored in a wooden tank that's still standing. But these days, the water is stored in an old tank car.
Coming to a stop here, folks. Parking sir, right behind you. Taking on water for our locomotive now.
We're getting water. Sorry.
It takes a few minutes to fill the tank, and it's a great time to take some pictures, especially because the river here is really pretty. If you're more interested in learning about the trees, our helpful ranger will tell you all about them.
Bob Lolly tried this. I know that it's a long needle.
It's a long needle. It comes in, it looks like a grass when it's real.
They top off the water tanks to make sure they can make it up the steepest part of the line.
There you go.
We crossed another bridge, and now the river is on our side of the car again. This is the Needleton Hiking Bridge. The train stops here to either pick up or drop off hikers. Like all national forests, there are quite a few hiking trails here. Some of the trailheads are several miles away up on Highway 550. And they go all the way down to here and beyond. The track is about to get as steep as it gets, with a grade of 4%, which means we're going up not even 5 inches every 10 feet. Again, you can't really tell when you're sitting in the car, but you can tell that the engine is working a little harder. If the grade were any steeper, the steel wheels on the steel track wouldn't have enough grip, or traction as they call it in train speak. They would simply spin, like a car tire in snow.
Hear the echo? Oh, yeah.
As you can tell, the neighbors and I are getting along pretty well. This time we were swapping stories about our separate trips to Big Bend.
Did you camp at Big Bend?
Yes.
So you drove all the way there?
Yeah.
We're getting pretty high up now, pretty close to 9,000 feet. And the landscape is changing. It's now more obvious that we're in a valley that was carved by glaciers. We're finally seeing a bunch of fall color. The aspen and birch look great with the sun behind them. By now we've been in the train for about 2.5 hours. And for much of that time we were looking at the river, or something like this. That's the sign for 10 Mile Creek. We're now 10 miles from Silverton. Back in the day, there was a camp here and a logging mill to make ties for the railroad.
Oh. Talked about all the forest trails out here. Oh, yeah.
After a couple of hours of mostly sitting, I decided it was time to take a look at some of the other cars on the train. This is a standard coach car. Notice the seats are facing forward, and there's overhead storage, which I gotta admit I wish we had in our gondola car. There's an ADA compliant car with special seats for those with special needs. There's a lift for people who need wheelchairs. And yes, there's a bathroom for them too. Going from car to car is a little tricky because each car moves slightly differently. And we're not allowed to stay here to take pictures. We can only go from one car to the other. This is another standard car, and the line for the bathroom here is quite long. And yes, these tracks are rough, and it was tough going. I did my best not to bump into people, but I often failed.
Oh, boy. Uh-oh. Try not to hit anybody.
Standard cars like this one don't have air conditioning. They do have heaters for the colder months, and the windows do operate. You can raise them to get some ventilation. If it looks like it's going to rain, you probably don't want to be in a gondola car. You'll be much better off in one of these. And if you do need air conditioning, well then you're going to have to pay a little more for the first class or presidential car. This is another gondola car. Early on, you may remember that I said that for photographs, it's better to be sitting farther back in the train so that you can see more of the train and the engine as it goes around the curves. Well, this is where I wish I was sitting. This is the concessions car. It was empty, and the prices were a little high for my liking, except for the thing I actually wanted.
Oh, so there was a bookstore kind of place. That's it.
We have one book, and it's the best
That's wow. What does that tell me?
It has history all about the railroad. It's got the whistle signals. It's got all sorts of.
I asked if I could go back any farther to see the fancier
much is
cars,
it?
and it turns out, no. So I found these pictures online to give you an idea of what those cars are like. They have much different seating layouts than the standard cars. and some cars apparently even have an outdoor observation platform. And the interiors? Well, they're quite a bit fancier, more elegant than the rest of the train. It took a while to stagger back to my gondola and my new friends from North Carolina. Walking the train is sort of like walking on a ship in rough seas. It takes a while to get your sea legs. That is an adventure. Walking all the way back is quite an adventure. It's getting close to lunchtime, and what do you know, we're just a few miles from Silverton, where there's plenty of places to eat and drink, and to purchase things that'll clutter up our shelves for years and years. We're still in a valley that was shaped quite recently, in geologic terms, by glaciers. But these high mountains that are part of the San Juan Range have a much older story. This was an active volcanic region 30 to 35 million years ago, which helps to explain why the area has so many hot springs. And it proves that there's still quite a bit of heat pretty close to the surface. The heat from those old volcanoes brought the gold, silver, and other metals near the surface, where they were discovered in 1860 by Charles Baker and other miners. The first big silver vein wasn't discovered until 1871, when this whole area was still Ute Indian territory, and their chief was named Ouray. He was said to be friendly to the white man. Now, the Utes obviously weren't happy with all the miners that came to seek their fortunes by digging up their homeland. The chief Ouray didn't believe that he could stop the onslaught, so when the U.S. government wrote up a treaty, he and the other Ute elders signed it, and from 1874 on, mining was allowed. Today, some would call that a land grab, and maybe they're right. The nearby town of Ouray, which is at the end of the $1 Million Highway, is named for him. But before we get to Silverton, I'm going to relay one more science-y fact. Most of you know that Yellowstone National Park is in a giant caldera, or collapsed supervolcano. Geologists say that there are 16 calderas in the San Juan region, and the volcano near Wolf Pass was 5 times bigger than the one that created Yellowstone. And that one's darn big. Silverton is in one of those calderas. Yep, this whole area is a collapsed volcano. It's been shaped by millions of years of erosion, and of course the much more recent glaciers. But from this overlook, it's still quite recognizable as a caldera. And here's a non-geology fact that I found rather interesting, that we learned from the volunteer ranger. These little cars here, every day before the first train, they send one of these out to check the tracks. And there's another one of these about a half mile or mile or so behind every one of the trains, and they have some basic firefighting equipment on board to put out any stray fires started by the train. Our 3.5-hour train ride is almost over, and I was surprised at how quickly it went. There's always something to look at, whether it be the river, the mountains, that incredible canyon, or the fall color. There always is something to look at. And I was incredibly fortunate to be seated next to 2 really nice people, who I hope to hear from again. If you're watching this, please drop a comment. Let me know how you're doing. Tell me how that road trip in the Jeep went. When we arrive in Silverton, we've got 2 hours to explore. Well, I do anyway, because my South Carolina friends went off to rent a Jeep to explore the backcountry. Silverton doesn't seem to have changed much since the 1880s. The original depot is still here, and so are many of the original buildings. The town site reminded me of the cruise ship ports like Ketchikan, Alaska. Most of the buildings are from the period, and, well, they're all freshly painted and full of things for out-of-towners to do, like having lunch. There are also places to wet your whistle. There's even an old hotel, and its rates are much more reasonable than I expected. There's even a park where you can create music, which is fun. After sitting most of the morning and eating a big lunch, the downtown streets offer plenty of places to discover as you walk off a few galleries. If you're affected by altitude, you might want to keep in mind that, according to my watch anyway, we're at 9,400 feet. Maybe that explains why my heart rate was kind of high for just walking around. The streets are very wide for such a small town. When the town was designed in the 1870s, the streets were designed to be wide enough for a wagon train or pack animal train to turn around in the middle of the street, because the mines are all up in the mountains, and they use pack animals to get the minerals down to the train. There's plenty of shops on those wide streets with plenty of things that you really don't need, but that you want, so that you can prove that you've been here. Apparently there's a museum that I've heard good things about, but nobody could tell me where it was. Can you tell me where the mining museum is?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think this way somewhere. I'm just a drifter.
He mumbled that he was just a drifter, hired to babysit the store during lunch. I didn't know we still had drifters. 2 hours is about right to explore the town, but I actually wish I had a little bit more time. Maybe I could have found that mining museum. And I made one more stop on the way to the trains and buses. And this one's not really fair. It's an ice cream shop. And who can resist that? It's time to wrap this one up. I hope I've shown you that it's a trip worth taking. Durango is a nice little town that caters to everyone. And if you like to explore the West, this train ride must be on your bucket list. It's a great day out. It takes you back through time, through some of Mother Nature's best work, along a mountain stream, the Animas River, with its rapids, its cascades, and its stunning canyon. Fall color was just a bonus. I'm thankful that I got the last available seat and that it was in an open car, sharing a bench seat with some of the friendliest people I've met in a long time. The constant rhythm of the historic engine may have another effect on you. I hope it encourages you to reflect on just how lucky you are to see what you're seeing. And to later buy a little trinket that will forever bring back that feeling. I had to take the bus back instead of the train because the bus is an hour and a half quicker. And I had to drive back to Albuquerque that night because I had an early flight the next morning. I didn't shoot anything for the buses because I really didn't plan on including it in this video. But this driver, who really doubled as a guide, was extremely good. He was very knowledgeable and he had a great way of telling stories. He entertained us the entire way home. He made me glad I took the bus back.
Been on Earth for 30 million years. How about that?